Good evening.
Let's pray. Lord Jesus, as we pray to you this evening, we thank you for this wonderful time of the year. It is a season that reminds us like no other that we are not alone, that you, Jesus, Almighty God, came to us as a child, wrapped in our frailty and vulnerability, to tell us down here on our level in a way that we can understand that our Creator God loves us. So thank you. It's this love for us that motivates us to love one another in this community. And so as we pause before this meeting tonight, we just acknowledge that we need you. Jesus, the men and women here in this room are here tonight to talk about the issues that concern the people of this community. I ask that in their deliberations they would be wise. Help them to think rightly and fairly. Help them to see the issues clearly and make good decisions. Lord, we ask that you'd bless the community of Fergus Falls. Use this meeting to do that. Help us to live at peace with one another, to conduct our lives in ways that add to the well-being of this community. Again, Lord, we thank you for the leaders and officials in this room. Bless them, bless their families. Help them to know your favor in their public service as well as their private lives. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30 on December 4th, 2023, and we'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please. Here. 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 Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item of business this evening is the approval of the agenda. We'll call on our city administrator, Andrew Bremstead. Good evening, Andrew.
Yeah, good evening, Your Honor, council members. There are no changes to the agenda this evening, so we would recommend approval as presented.
We can do that through a motion.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Brent. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. There are no public hearings this evening. There are no bids to award. Under petitions and communications, we have a discussion of Pebble Lake Golf Course, but first, before we get to that, we're just going to have the open forum session of the agenda. So anyone here wishing to address the council regarding an issue that's not on the agenda, feel free at this time to come to the podium and address the council. So if there's an item on the that is not on the agenda that you wish to address. Okay. See no one, we're going to move on from the public, pardon me, from the open forum. We'll get into the Pebble Lake Golf Club discussion. Pebble Lake Golf Club has asked to be on the agenda this evening, so at this time, we're going to call on Dusty Christensen to address the council. Good evening, Dusty.
Yes. City Administrator, Mayor, City Council members, thanks for having us. I had a lot of hockey games this weekend, so I apologize if my voice is a little hoarse here today.
You're here.
But thank you again for having us. So I'm the president of the Pebble Lake Golf Club, here to just not only represent our board, but also our members and the community in a couple different ways. Obviously, we have a lot of different questions, and we have a very good showing of people that have a lot of sincere care and passion, and that's why we're here. So what I'm going to do over the next couple minutes is just to go over a brief update of kind of why we got here. I'm going to read a letter that we sent to the city administrators, so everyone who wasn't able to be here or got that letter, to make sure that they understand what was in that letter. The goal of this whole thing is not only from us as a golf course to educate you guys a little bit more, but for us to be here is the big question of why. And I think we'll get there. So I'll take it for a few minutes, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. As our Pebble Lake Golf Club has a volunteer board, as you guys know, the main goal that we have heard over the last 7 to 10 years from liaisons at our golf club, which has been Scott Rachels and Jim Fish, is please do everything you can to break even and minimize your risk in the food and beverage department. Okay, so as we build our business model as our golf board, those are the things that we had to take in consideration out of everything we do. And you know what? We've done a really good job at it. We have minimized risk in food and beverage, as you guys know, and we have broke even as a self-sustaining business of your guys' asset. So those are some things that I just wanted to make sure you keep in the back of your mind. We've done everything that's asked of us, and now we're here, obviously, to find out why we're moving on to this next step. I'm going to read the letter. I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. This letter was delivered to the administrator, the city council members, and the mayor of Fergus Falls on November 29th, 2023. It reads, Pebble Lake Golf Club is writing you today to request that the city of Fergus Falls terminate its RFP process, request for proposal for golf course management. The basis of our request is twofold. First, Pebble Lake Golf Club has already begun its work on the 2024 golf season, and putting that on hold now will have a negative impact on our ability to continue successfully operating your golf course for the 2024 golf season. Contracts and agreements are already in place for staff, golf carts, merchandise, and chemicals. We have automated monthly payments are being accepted from season pass holders towards their 2024 passes. To put all that on hold now would severely impair our ability to be successful in 2024. Second, and more importantly, Pebble Lake Golf Club has aligned with the city since 1968 to help improve our community, not only recreationally, but also financially. We've maintained and improved the golf course property to be one of the premier municipal golf courses in the state. However, what we've done financially for the city and for this property has gone unrecognized in recent discussions by the current city council, and we're writing today to ensure all of you are aware of the history and the investment that Pebble Lake Golf Course has made for the city of Fergus Falls. We believe that our largest impact has been in the addition of 2 new golf holes that form the foundation for what is now the Pebble Hills expansion of Fergus Falls. In 1992, Pebble Lake Golf Club purchased 22.5 acres of property, paid for the architecture and construction of 2 new golf holes, and then donated the property back to the city upon completion. Without those golf holes, that development would not exist as it does today, and those tax dollars would not be coming into the city of Fergus Falls. Pebble Lake Golf Club has made numerous other improvements to the property that we'd be happy to share in full detail with the city as part of our series of lease agreement renewal discussions. Of note, improvements include with the construction of a new maintenance facility, upgrades and maintenance to your irrigation system, and numerous renovations to your building, our clubhouse, which include handicap accessibility, mold removal, and general upkeep. Much of this falls outside of the parameters of our current lease agreement, but has been completed and paid for by Pebble Lake Golf Club because we felt it was the right thing to do for the property and for the community. Pebble Lake Golf Club continues to be run by a volunteer board that carries no benefit beyond our passion for the future of Pebble Lake Golf Course. Our goal is to continue the successful path we're on in partnership with the city of Fergus Falls, whereby the city keeps an important asset under its control at the lowest possible cost to the city, and our growing golf community retains its access to a beautifully maintained golf course. We hope this message helps you understand a little bit more about the history, the passion, the sense of community, and the success that we have all benefited from under the current agreement with Pebble Lake Golf Club. Pebble Lake Golf Course, under the management of Pebble Lake Golf Club, Inc., is a strong performing city asset in every sense. To upset that today and put our 2024 season at risk is unnecessary. We ask that you terminate the RFP process and immediately begin the lease agreement renewal negotiations with Pebble Lake Golf Club. I'll turn it back to you guys for now.
Thanks, Dusty. All right, it's back to the council. At this point, there is an RFP that has, the council's voted on. It's out right now. So council can choose to take action or continue to go along the path that they've indicated in the past.
I mean, are we looking for some sort of resolution or something to kind of move this, or is it just purely a discussion? As you say, I suppose an update on where we are at the RFP process in terms of when were submissions due
21st.
And have we received any submissions?
December 21st is the,
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yeah, go ahead,
Your
Andy.
Honor, Councilmember Hicks, the RFP was released on November 27th, which was a week ago from today. And the due date within the RFP that is out there is December 21st at 4 PM. As of this moment, we have not received any proposals.
So I guess at this point, it's up to the council. If they decide to take action tonight, that's an option. There is a current process that is underway. So it would be to change that process. So that's the discussion, that's the decision for the council. Does that make sense?
Yep. I suppose as a follow-up question then would be, what was the, overall, what was the stimulus for the kind of looking at an RFP for the golf course? I mean, what, in the sense that obviously it got brought up, and I'm not adverse to opening up things in, in the sense of the word. I think that, it's something that we should probably do more. I mean, for example, we get very comfortable with kind of situations that we get history with an organization or a group and we don't change anything. I'm thinking, for example, banking. We do a lot of banking. Some of that is with kind of businesses that are in town, but we don't necessarily, we also do it with Wells Fargo, which is it's a large corporation that doesn't do a lot for Fergus Falls. So I think, having a discussion about probably RFPs isn't a bad thing. I would just, for the benefit of the golf course, I think it was probably one of the biggest naysayers about the golf course in the past, because the golf course has sucked a lot of money, over the course of time. I think the city wrote off about $300,000 on one project out there. But I would say, and I applaud you on the hiring of Kevin Swanson, because I think since Kevin Swanson took over, that place has turned around. And Kevin has done a really good job of you, as you said, looking after the city's asset and making it break even. So I think that's, the board and should take that message back to Kevin, that I personally am very grateful for what he's done out there. He's done a good job. So, but I think, if this is the right RFP that we start with, I don't have skin in the game from that point of view. I don't golf. I do go out to Palmas. I enjoy that. So, in the summertime, but if this is going to be an interruption to the 2024 season, is there a better timing that this should go out than, November, December of the year? And maybe we can have some discussion about the timing of it.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I would echo Councilmember Hicks's comments, especially about Kevin and the great job that he's done. I think I tell him that every time I see him. And the timing of this does seem like a pretty tight window. A lot of people have put a lot of hard work into next season already. With like Dusty said, the things that are already in motion. And I guess at this point, I would kind of have to be convinced that there would be a reason why this needs to happen right now. I would be in favor of a continuation on the process. It seems like whatever miscommunications might have occurred in the past, we're here now and looking at this, and it seems like it's going to upset the apple cart and not give credit to the people that have put a lot of hard work into the facility. I golf occasionally, and I have a lot of friends and a lot of family members that use the golf course quite a bit, and it does seem like it's heading in the right direction. And if it did come to an RFP process at some time, I would say that the current organization would have a pretty solid case. Somebody would, if we put it out for RFP, somebody would have to come in with a pretty stunning proposal to offset the hard work that's been done by the people that live here in Fergus Falls and that really care about the facility. So I would just be interested to hear what some other council members think on it, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Tom. I would just say, Tom, I've 15 years of my experience dealing with local politics, and there's no doubt that the relationship between the Fergus Falls City Council, the city, and the public, or the Pebble Lake Golf Club, is better than it's ever been. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. At the same time, I do think that when you're dealing with a public asset, you're dealing with public tax dollars, that occasionally going out for an RFP is the prudent thing to do. There's 13,000 people in this community that don't use the golf course. I agree that it would have to be a pretty darn good proposal in order to be a better situation for the city. But I do think at some point, occasionally going out for RFP makes sense when you're dealing with taxpayer dollars. If we, as you mentioned, Anthony and Tom, had delayed the RFP, the contract currently ends December 31st. Is that accurate? Okay, so just know that too. We have a contract that is ending at the end of this year. So, Tom?
Yeah, and just to add to what you said, Your Honor, I think about the airport. The airport is a city-owned facility, and a few years ago we put it out for the RFP process, and I think out of that we got some management that has really turned the airport around and really started increasing numbers and increasing traffic, and again, like I said, I think the trajectory that I've seen from the current golf course management leads me to believe that we're on a good path and very likely are represented, and it's managed by the best people for the job. But I do agree, it's a publicly owned resource, and we're a free market society, and if there is someone out there that can come in and deliver better results for less taxpayer money, I mean, ultimately we're here to make sure that taxpayer money is getting used as efficiently as possible. So I think it is only fair at some point to open up the process to some competition, but is this the right time?
And then, I know Al wanted to say, the last thing I would say is maybe it's obvious, but when you're dealing with an RFP of this sort, lowest cost is not the only consideration when you're dealing with a public with a public asset that has a 50-year history with an organization that has a track record that's currently operating well. So that would be the other. Maybe that's overstating the obvious, but Al, did you have a?
Yes, just some comments. About what I know about the golf course is I used to caddy for Walt Weneno back in the day when he was the mayor, and I would get a Coke and a hamburger at the end of 18.
I'd give you a lot better deal than that, Al.
So that's what we're trying to work on, is a deal like that, Ben. What I would like to say is, it seems like Fergus Falls has gotten into the entertainment business here in the last few years especially. It sounds like the golf course has turned it around. You're breaking even. I don't know, are you showing some in the black? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a great thing. We've got projects right now that we know that we're going to operate a loss, and they're not built yet. That is good to see that something that will bring people into this city is breaking even or making money. What I also would like to say is that the timing is awful for you guys. And when I say guys, I mean gals too. That's pretty short notice. And for those people who have things planned, what they want to do, my brother comes up from Atlanta every year, stays out at the lake, and golfs with many of you, Jim and Tony. And that's something that will always happen. And I ask him, because he's traveled all over this world, and I ask him, what's Fergus Golf Course like? He goes, that's a great little golf course. I like going there. And, that's nice to hear when somebody who has experience that has been all over the place playing different courses. And that would include, I believe, Augusta. So anyway, he even likes it, for a little town. So I think that, what I feel bad about is there's this timeline that seems like you have to do something right now. I think we should maybe look at that. I'd like to see that. And more so is that it's turned around. You're breaking even or making a buck. We're not going back, $200,000 a year. You know, I'm sure that there's been things in the past that, you know, with circumstances that the city has lost money on. Of course, I know that. But you've proven yourself right now that it's turning around. You know, I can understand of entertaining different types of people or organizations or groups that want to try something, but you've just proved it. And, you know, I think I commend you for that. So, thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Al. Sounds to Jim.
I think one of the reasons,
Sorry.
I'll talk into the microphone. One of the reasons that that this was brought up was because the city has been kind of having their nose held to the grindstone on expenses. And there is money that goes into the golf course. Is this the right time? Absolutely not. I understand that. Is there a right time? I'm not sure. But therein lies one of the reasons that the motion was made, was because of we are being held our nose to the grindstone to keep the expenses down. And I know our tax levy committee this year has worked hard to keep it down. And it's just not possible. We're going to be a little bit under 8% increase from last year. And that's with all the work that they've done, and they've done a lot of work. So therein lies why it was looked at. Is it the right time? Probably not.
Thanks, Jim.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, please, go ahead, Laura.
So can you tell me about the time frame of the contract? How long is that contract?
5 years.
5 years?
It's at the end of a 5-year period, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, does that answer your
Yep,
question?
thank you.
So it sounds to me like, from those who have spoken, that there's consensus that continuing this RFP right now is probably not the right time to do this. So we could, through a resolution, we can change that tonight. Whether someone wants to offer that with a period that the RFP would continue, or leave that to a time to be determined at a future date, I'll leave that up. But it sounds to me like we're heading to a road that this is not the right time for this RFP under the circumstances, and so we can change that with a resolution. So, Anthony, what?
I'd make a resolution, Your Honor, that we extend the current contract with the Pebble Lake Golf Club by 1 year and look at an RFP to be issued in July of 24,
Okay.
so that with an effective date of the 1st of January 2025.
Sounds.
Second.
Sounds. Who?
Second.
Al? Second. Okay. Thank you, Anthony. We have a resolution and a second.
Question.
And we'll give anyone in the audience, if you wanted, after the council discusses before we vote, I'll give you an opportunity to talk to. Yeah, Scott.
Maybe this is a question for Dusty or someone, that given the process got started and we were looking at a December 21 date for that to come to a conclusion, was there some reason, or is there some reason why the golf club wouldn't be able to meet that deadline and submit a proposal now under the current situation? If we did nothing tonight, would they be unable to present a proposal? Or was there some reason why that's not possible?
Yeah, good question. So I'll give you a little bit of background that I think may answer that question in kind of in a couple different ways. So we knew our 5-year lease was up 12/31 of 23. We had a meeting early in the year that Scott Rachel was actually at and came to, and he brought a copy of the lease. At that time, Jim Fish was on vacation, so Scott came and replaced him. And at that time, it was, he mentioned to us, the lease is up. We wanted to get together, and why don't we get some things we don't like, go through, and that's all fine. Fast forward, and I have documentation on this, October 14th, and I work very close with Guy on a lot of things, and we have a great relationship. And at that time it was, where do we stand with the lease? We want to get together, so we're not here on December 4th with still no resolution with us trying to run a business next year, okay? So that started October 14th. Conversations back and forth to Guy. August 14th, that happened. So we wanted to get ahead of it before the end of the year. And each month I emailed Guy. They were going to have internal meetings, and I have email documentation of all this. Him and Andrew and Bill were going to get together and then get back to us. And the next really notification we got was a November 6th meeting of a motion and a second and a yes by everyone to go to the RFP. So we did our due diligence on the front end to try to get ahead of making sure we had ample time as a volunteer board to make the best educated financial decision for a new lease to represent our members going forward. So that's kind of how we got here. To answer your question, we'd be ready in a heartbeat, but the time and effort and energy for what we have done, and to your point of turning it around, to all of a sudden just open it up and we get stripped of 50 years of everyone's hard work, volunteer time, efforts, and money into this thing for a simple, we don't know why. And again, that's why you can see all of these people here is because of the why. That's what we're confused with. So yes, we'd be ready if we have to go that route. We would request that we don't have to because of the time constraints and the contracts we have in place. All of our golf carts, for example, are leased to Pebble Lake Golf Club. They're not leased to the city of Fergus Falls. We pay for those things, right? So we have a 4-year lease left on our golf carts. We have lots of things and communication with, we have, I think we're at $47,000 of chemicals for next year that are already on order. So that's why we're a little upset of the timing of it. But we'd be ready if we have to.
And Dusty, there's a resolution right now on the floor that would extend the contract 1 year.
And if that's what would get resolved and voted on, us as a board would still have to get together to make sure that
Sure.
lease that's currently in place is the right lease, even if it's for 1 year,
Sure, certainly.
before we'd be willing to sign that.
Al.
I just want to make mention here too is, as operating in the red for many years, I think, was that true in saying? Jim, you would know that very closely. And then to see it turn around, it's like it came out of the water and somebody kicked you right back into it. Yep. I don't want to see that happen. Like any business, hey, once you got to this plateau, let's keep going here. So, and you could probably be quite profitable then at some point in time, if we can keep this going. As far as looking for things that we got to watch to maybe keep track of where the money's at, when something's breaking even on an entertainment type of a venue, that's pretty good. At least we're not going backwards. We need to look at the ones that are going backwards instead of the ones that are at least paying for themselves. So there again, I commend you on that, and I hope that, you can get, instead of breaking even come up some more. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
I got this.
Yes.
I just want to remember, Ryan, Kevin Swanson did a great job, but you also got to realize Kevin Swenson, I'm sorry. And Lance has done a great job out there following when you guys, Rick retired. And so both those guys have 100% behind a lot of this. And of course, the board worked with them. And when I came in 2010, I think it's 2012 was the first year you guys pretty much turned it around, 12 or 13. And so this RFP wasn't to go after you guys. It was to answer the questions of the people who don't use the golf course. Why is it the good old boys club, they just keep getting it? And that's all it was about. It was nothing about getting rid of you guys or anything. So you can sit, we heard rumors that we were going to sell the place. We were going to sell lots of. We were never going to do that. This is going to be a golf course. But we have to answer to other voters. And that's why it's all brought up. I didn't know about the emails between Guy, but I know we were at the meeting. We had a great conversation about the lease coming up. It was a pretty forward lease. It's not I just said, you guys come in, we negotiate it, and it gets done real easy. That's not the reason I would have brought it up. It was a reason because of the people questioning us about why it's a good old boy. And we give money to you guys. It's not a lot of money, but it is a lot of it. It's $40,000. And so I just think it was a good idea to do it. I don't know if I didn't know it was going to interrupt you that bad. I know that there's 12 people pay on 12 months out of the year. I know that. So I just, I'd just as soon see it ride its way out. I don't know why you're worried about it, because you got a great record behind you. There's nothing to be, somebody's got to come in with some really good numbers to show us that you're not going to make it. So I just, that's why we did it. That's why I did it. The council went along with it. We talked it through. I think that the restaurant was a great thing for you guys. It's added to a lot of people talk about that now, and I just think it's a good thing. So, wasn't going after the golf course, but I think we should still move on.
And I'm going to respond to that only
ahead.
because of the restaurant. November 6th city council meeting that was here, there's a couple things. A few of those regarding our current lease. The city, when we signed a lease with Palmer's, May 21st of 2021, when we signed that lease, the city advised us that they wanted no part in any of that lease because there's equipment that needed to be purchased, and the city did not want to be involved in any purchasing of equipment for a city property that has a lease. So we, as a golf board, hired a local attorney and their firm to put the lease together. That lease is with that restaurant and Pebble Lake Golf Club, not with someone, and it doesn't matter who, and it does. I encourage business as well. Good business means you earned it, right? But the current things that we have in place are all by Pebble Lake Golf Club, not RFP number 2, and it disrupts everything. That lease can terminate upon Pebble Lake Golf Club not being there. So you look at the livelihoods of our employees between Kevin and Lance, their staff planning for next year, as well as, the restaurant, which in my mind was not only the best thing that helped our golf atmosphere, but I'm out there quite a bit with my kids. And there's a lot of people that go there that don't even golf. They love the service. The staff is friendly and happy. And I know you guys agree with all this, but there is some things that said November 6th council meeting that weren't accurate. We had 7 people that said yes to this that didn't know when the lease ended. We just figured that out tonight. So we made a request for an RFP without knowing the facts of what was even really in place. Those are some issues, as you can see, why we're confused and a little upset, because if you run a business and you have to be upfront about it, be upfront, but know your facts if you're going to say yes to it. So hopefully that helps on the restaurant side.
And just one more thing about when I said in my proposal, I said that the lease with you guys had to be honored, whoever got this. It was part of our agreement. So you were not, we knew that you had a lease in place, and we were not going to kick that lease out, whoever got the RFP, which.
Yeah, you're right. I remember you saying that. The problem with that is the relationship and how long it took to get Palmer's and their staff here. If there was a change in management, if I was her, see ya.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
If I could just make one more comment, please.
Sure,
Thank you,
and
Mayor.
then we'll wrap it up, and we're going to vote.
And I think what's really, really good about this tonight is now the taxpayer knows that you're paying your way. Okay? As Scott mentioned, we have to make sure the taxpayer is aware of things. This is crystal clear now.
yep.
That, okay, you guys are breaking even. It's not costing them, any more. We're not going behind on it. And I think, if you keep it going, it's only going to get better.
Thank you for your time.
Ben,
Yeah, Jim.
was mentioned that $40,000 a year goes to the golf club. That $40,000 a year is in equipment. And $40,000 doesn't even buy a good used lawnmower anymore. So it isn't that much. And if it wasn't for Arlen out there, our mechanic, we'd have been down the tubes a long time ago. He's keeping some of that machinery going way past where their lifetime should be on that, so.
Thanks, Jim.
Can I just make a comment about that? So
Sure.
that 40,000
Travis.
goes to equipment.
Just come up to just so those watching at home can hear you.
So that 40,000 goes to equipment, not to personnel, not to salary. And who owns that equipment?
City.
Do we have an answer to that?
I don't know. Some of it's city, some of it's golf course.
The city owns most of it?
Yeah,
All of the newer stuff is owned by the
we've
city.
started, if the city's paying for it, we put it in our name, that it's the city's equipment.
Mr. Layton, if you want to speak, please come to the lectern.
Thank you, Mark Layton. First of all, let me again criticize the council and administration There shouldn't have been T-boned November, the last board meeting. There should have been discussed, as it was attempted to months ago. You knew the end of this contract was coming. Any businessman who knows that the contract's coming up would have had it handled and disclosed by now, not let this golf course hang itself. So number one, the council wasn't informed properly. Number two, there were a few council members, I believe, acted outside their authority. It's not their decision. It's the council's decision. Mismanagement. Number two, if you want to bring money into this thing, golf courses brought a lot of money to this community. It's broke even. Thousands of people come here from out of town and golf. They eat. They pay their round fees. And let's not forget, what are the real estate taxes that have come to the city from around that golf course? Now, I understand some people may have a question about funding the golf course because they don't golf or they don't know. Look at the real estate taxes presented.
Last year it was, I can help you on this one. In 2022, everybody not on the lake, just in that one neighborhood, $228,000 per year.
All right, now that we're talking money, let's look at the convention center.
We're not talking about the convention
Your
center right now.
opportunity cost
No,
were
we're
a
gonna
million
vote on this.
three.
Mr. Layton, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about the budget
I'm
later
just
in the
telling you.
meeting. Right now, we're going to keep
This
this to...
$40,000 budget means nothing compared to the other things the city's done.
Certainly,
Thank
but
you.
we're not going to go down that whole rabbit hole right now. We have a resolution on the floor. If there's anyone else that has anything to say to the council, yes. Mr. Jurgens.
Hey, Ben. Mr. Shire, Honorable Shire. I was asked to watch the city council meeting last week, and I watched Mr. Rachel's show so much disrespect for the people out at Pebble Lake Golf Course. I felt so bad for you. As you spoke, I felt bad for you. Do any of you have, I don't know. Anybody own their own company here? Oh, you do? And if you had a customer that came to you 55 years in a row, would you think, I got about a month left, maybe we should open it up for somebody else to take their jobs? Because that's the way you threw it out. I mean, let's go back to the cameras.
This is
Look from
public money.
Excuse me, I'm talking. Thank you. We sat there, look at it, 1 hour and 12 minutes to 1 hour and 13 and a half minutes. You rewatch that and listen. Hold on, wait a second, I might have something. I do. This was a quote from Councilman Rachel's. I was communicating with people from different golf courses, of course. They thought or suggested or I talked about it with different people that we should have an RFP. That is a direct quote. I watched it 10 times to try to get that mess of a sentence out. And what I have here is a frustration because all I've done for the last 25 years is worked with the youth out at our golf course, and all of those youth out at our golf course become members. This program, this golf course, it gives back to the community. Dusty just said $220,000. At what point are we going to stop throwing the $300,000 mistake? When are you going to stop throwing it in our face? Who's going to be the next person that throws that away? Do you think, has our government made many mistakes in the past that we're kind of like not proud of? I think we have. But you keep throwing $300,000 to the current board. This is a volunteer board. How many volunteer boards want to be consistently reminded of a mistake that was created by the city council and the Pebble Lake Golf Board years ago? And yet you keep bringing it up as, well, you know, we've given you money before, and, well, you know what? It didn't go well. Well, guess what? Last year we brought $220,000 into this community. I live out there. I wouldn't live out there if there wasn't a golf course there. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the first question, when's the lease up? The first of the year? Just throwing it out there haphazardly. I don't always agree with what the superintendent out there does. I don't always agree what Kevin does out there. But who in the world flirts with their livelihood like that in a month? Lance has a family. Kevin has a family. This is their occupation. And you just thought, let's just throw it out there for an RFP. Let's see if somebody else can take it, because we've only been trying to help our community for 55 years. That's the loyalty that you guys, you all voted for it. You all thought it was a great idea in November. So frustrating. And you have a lot, you might get calls because what's this golf course doing? Well, we already talked about it. It breaks even or makes a little bit of money. Can't you say that back to the people that call you? And we haven't been a failure out there for years. Wade, we had like what? How many bad years?
Negative years, 5 to 6.
Yeah, you guys are making it sound like we've had 25, 30 years of hardships, and now we're barely turning it around. We had 5 or 6 bad years. That happens. In anybody's business, do every year you put out the same profit? No, some years you have a better profit, and other years you don't. And some people even have really good businesses, but the economy doesn't help them, and they lose their business. And I'm sure most of you have somebody in your life that you know that have went through that. It's so frustrating, you guys. Amber Hovland was on the board and worked her tail off to get Palmer's there. Josie and Mike come in there. These are volunteers. And I don't know, maybe you guys are all volunteers too. I have no idea. I don't follow this. I'm probably the last person. I'm sure there's plenty of people telling me to sit down right now, and that's all right. But you know what the problem is loyalty. Every year, Matt McGovern and I bring in families from different areas, Edina, Detroit Lakes, Moorhead, Brainerd, and they stay in our hotels, and they eat at our restaurants, and they spend their money. Do we have a lot of these programs? And you say, well, you know, we give you $40,000 a year. Could we have a layout of the different businesses in town that you are a part of that you give money to? Is our $40,000 even in the book? This is your guys' golf course. This is why people move to Fergus. They don't move to Fergus because we have a really nice otter at Grotto Park. They moved to Fergus because this is something that people use. And you know what? I would be all for it. If the city would man up and tell us, you know what? Come up with an idea to make sure that every person in Fergus gets a chance to golf at that golf course. I would be the first one in line to help you guys out. That doesn't have to be the Good Old Boys Club. You know what? The Good Old Boys Club only exists if you allow it to. There's been a lot of people that speak a lot more eloquently than I do, and I understand that. But the loyalty, or the lack thereof it, I couldn't believe it. I honestly, I couldn't believe it. To try to give us a month and hope for somebody else coming in, because you don't bring that up unless you want somebody to replace us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Yes.
I do have just one quick thing, if you don't mind.
Please.
I'm Darla Hagee, and I was on the golf board when my son was 1 year old, so in 2001 for 5.5 years. And during that time, they would come and say, we're reworking the equipment. We don't know how we're gonna get another year out of this mower, but we're gonna have Arlen do it. And they kept working, and each year that I've been a member here, or the years that I haven't, they've worked so hard, and by people working together. And so when I hear this stuff, I go, what? How is somebody gonna come in and do that? I don't know, but I know from my experience and my pre-board days, we need to look at what people have done and give them a lot of credit. Lance has done awesome. Kevin has, and that's all I have to say, but it's important to know that there's a history and we all care and we're doing a whole bunch that nobody knows about. And that's it, thanks.
Thanks, Darlis. All right, we're gonna, if you have just a concluding
In
comment.
summary, you can hear the passion that these people have. And to maintain that passion and to rebuild the trust with the city council, I urge this council to renew this contract for 5 years. 1 year is not enough. Regain and maintain these good people. Don't throw a good thing away. And let me paraphrase Bill. The city doesn't do a good job of running business. We'll talk about the convention center later. Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, Scott, we're gonna call for the vote here shortly, but go ahead, Scott.
I think that I just wanted to maybe refer back to the meeting that's been brought up in question from November 6th. At that time, I think, at least from my point of view, I'm not going to try to speak for the rest of us that were here, but it was about the process, and Jim had mentioned this earlier. It was about the process. It wasn't necessarily that we're throwing somebody to the curb or that we didn't like what was going on. That had really, from my point of view, nothing to do with it. As a city, as a city council, we've been asked to be responsible with, the choices that are made for what we spend money on. And I think it compares very much like choosing a different operator for the airport, a process that we went through a couple years ago. That didn't mean that it was going to be changed. In that case, it happened to change because the current one was leaving anyway. So there was going to be a change no matter what. In this case, a lot of what's been said tonight, I would have expected to hear once we've received the RFPs, if we got any, then there would be, defense of this one or that one. But there hasn't been any decision made to quit anything. And so a lot of what's seeming to come tonight as though there's been some decision made, well, there hasn't been. There haven't been any RFPs received yet. So to me, it was about the process, doing what we as a council felt we were called to do in a responsible way. I will grant that the time frame was short. And I asked that question at that time thinking that maybe less than 2 months was difficult. But given the existing ongoing business there to basically say, we want to do what we're already doing and here's how we do it, I didn't think it would be insurmountable for the current club to make that happen. I thought it might be pretty difficult for anybody new to show up, and so I thought, well, this probably isn't going to change anything, but we've got to go through this process. That's the way it worked in my head. So I'll quit with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
I'm Mike Schneeber here. Probably know half the people in here. But you're looking for someone to run the golf course, basically, right? And not have money coming from the city or taxpayers. And then, but yet you're wanting people to contribute toward the equipment, the chemicals, and all of that. But then if you just leave the golf course alone and not tax them, and then let them run their own budget, how simple is that? Because then the city wouldn't have to really pay anything and let the club run itself. Is that possible? I started there in 1980. I built those 2 holes. I built that maintenance facility. I ran many miles with Rick. I know all you guys. I snobbed that ground like crazy. And I just can't figure out why it doesn't work. Because it generates so much money and so much community for Fergus Falls. And you develop all that land around all of those 2 holes. And now I'm with Precision Landscaping, which we have a position where I could get the chemicals, I could subcontract fertilizing, irrigation repair, look at different aspects. Just do your routine maintenance and then give us an opportunity to lease out the airifying, the fertilizing, the higher end of maintenance of a golf course, and put out bids, because other courses are strapping to buy the equipment to maintain golf courses, and yet they can't afford that equipment, and it doesn't do as good a job. But we have the ability to submit contracts or leases where we could come in and maintain those areas, or improve a tee box, or a bunker, or, you know, edge the bunkers, you know, just worry about your routine maintenance, setting the cups, mowing the greens, mowing the fairways, and then we could come in and make it reasonable for, and save you money in that aspect. I just, you know, that's all I gotta say.
Thanks.
Just had to say something.
You know,
My name is Dick Netz, and I've been golfing out there since 1965. When I first started playing golf, the golf course was in terrible condition. Dandelions were 6 and 7 inches high. The thing was full of weeds. There were no water systems that worked on the course, so the thing got just dry, etc. And anyway, a bunch of us got together and we established Pebble Lake Golf Club, and as a nonprofit corporation, and we sold the shares basically to whoever wanted to get one, golfer or not. The difference, once we made that decision and we got other people who were doing the work and had good employees, good people who were dedicated and helped them, they did one heck of a job. And the golf course in today, compared to 1965, is night and day. And as far as golfers making contributions, when we bought the 2 new holes on the east side, most of us each gave up $1,000. When we built the golf cart and equipment building, most of us gave up another 1,000, or some only 500. And what has happened is you get the course operated and maintained by people who want to do a good job and do a good job, and I would not want to change that for anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. All right, so we'll take a couple more comments, then we are going to call for the vote here, but please.
Hi, I'm Debbie Smith. I live in Fergus Falls. I am an infrequent golfer. In fact, if you ever want to look good at golfing, play with me. I'd like to address the good old boy phrase that I keep hearing. that I've heard here tonight, you know what? There really are some good old boys and good old gals. There are people sitting here who taught me how to golf. They took time. They had to hide behind trees when it was my turn to tee up. I've seen people who have donated clubs for those that didn't have any, who are willing to give up their time to help and volunteer, not get paid, but to volunteer to help anybody who wanted to learn. It doesn't mean everybody has to learn how to play golf, but the restaurants there, you can enjoy, you can bring your kids, you can bring your grandkids, and you can enjoy the entire facility. How many other cities are right off the freeway, have a lake, a picnic area, places to play ball, pathways? This is a rare opportunity. The city should be paying attention to it. It could be made into something spectacular with the time and the effort and the passion that these people have been showing. There's the potential there. I once asked, has anybody looked at what would it cost down the road to winterize the clubhouse so it could be used year-round? Fergus Falls right now, I belong to several organizations. We have to go out of town for meetings because we enjoy eating. We like to give business to restaurants, but we also need some privacy. There aren't any places left anymore in Fergus Falls for that. So we have to bring our business out of town. I think the city should really look seriously at the potential that the golf course and that clubhouse have. If the community thinks it's a good old boys club, it's because they haven't come out to enjoy it and meet some of the people that are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, Dick, did you have something else you wanted to say?
As far as other contributions from people to our golf course, which is owned by the city, I forgot to give the George Jurgens family a thank you because they built the deck on the clubhouse with their own money all by themselves. Thank you.
All right, so.
Your Honor, I'd like to offer an amendment to my resolution to include that I would request that the city form a subcommittee of 2 Pebble Lake Golf Course members, 2 members of staff, and 2 council members to work on, contract discussions with the current Pebble Lake Golf Board. I think Al was
Al, you
my
all right with
second.
that?
Yep.
Okay, so the resolution is to extend the current contract. Just one side of the contract. Obviously, the golf board will have an opportunity to weigh in on that, but also to establish the committee that Anthony just outlined. Everyone clear on the resolution?
Question?
Yes.
It would be subject to the acceptance. It's not
Yeah, we're one-sided.
it's not our unilateral decision to make, correct?
We're one side, we're one side of that contract, obviously.
And that would, and basically, we would leave, obviously, the statement in there about the RFP in July, and obviously, if the golf course decide not to accept that, then obviously, so be it. Then we would proceed with the RFP.
Your Honor, when is your next meeting?
A week from today.
So you could decide before the next council meeting, is my question is.
You're correct.
Okay.
Got everyone clear on the resolution and the amendment? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. Thank you, everyone, for weighing in on this subject, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Moving along to the consent agenda. Tonight there's
Maybe you people want to stay and listen to the budget.
There are 3 items on the consent agenda.
I'm not even asking for anything. Yeah. Thank you. You as well.
Yep, I'm fully aware. And I appreciate the work that's been put into it. Here for that
Barely made it past.
But I thought maybe half the people were here. It's more than half.
Yeah, I had about 5 or 6, and then.
All right, we're going to move along to the consent agenda. There are 3 items this evening. On the consent agenda, if anyone would like to speak to any of those items individually, we'll remove them.
That's why it's still.
Seeing none. We'll need a resolution approving the consent agenda from Jim, second from Tom. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
A resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolution, tonight we have 3 items pertaining to the 2024 budget and levy. And at this point, we will call on our Finance Director, Bill Sawmore, to go through the budget and the levy presentation. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Your Honor, Council, thank you. Get the keyboard on and working here. So, yeah, we're here tonight to have our budget presentation. We went through this in September, and again, here we are for our public meeting tonight. We do have 2 resolutions before you. At the end of this section, one would be approving the levy, one would be approving the budget. Prior to that is a time for public comment. So certainly we want to allow for that after I run through the presentation. So our timeline. So we started back in May with the Tax Levy Committee, which is the mayor, Councilmember Job, and Councilmember Rachels, and Andrew Bremseth, our city administrator. And then Sandy and I sit in the committee. We're not actually members of the committee, but we're the worker bees on the committee. So we started back in May, May 17th, worked throughout the summer with our departments of the city. September 13th, presented that proposed budget and levy to you as the city council. September 18th, the city council then approved that proposed budget because we needed to have it to Otter Tail County by October 2nd so that the county could get it out in the tax statements, prior to tonight's meeting, so the public would have their statements. We certified that to them, I believe, on September 20th, was what it was. So then between September and December now, the Tax Levy Committee continued to work because if you remember, we can't increase above September, but you can always come down. So the Tax Levy Committee, as you stated, and you as a council, we wanted to bring that down some here by December. So that was the goal. We continued to work with the Tax Levy Committee on that. We're here tonight, December 4th, for this public meeting and comments. And then if you choose to adopt the levy and the budget tonight. And then December 28th, we have to have the final property tax levy certified to Otter Tail County. So some of the assumptions here, I'm going to grab a couple notes just so I don't forget a bit. They've changed a little since the last go-around. So wages, we are at 2.8. That didn't change. Health insurance, we did come in September at 0. So that is great for the city of Fergus Falls to not have an increase in health insurance rates. As you know, we've seen that jump around. Typically, you see larger increases in health. So that was really a good deal. We're with Lakes Country Service Co-op, is where the insurance is through. City implemented high deductible health plans, with HSA in the past that really proved to work well. And I think that's helps with that cost driver of having 0 increase in that. Electric, 2%. Our city utilities at 4%, natural gas at 2%. Worked with Otter Tail Power and Great Plains back in the summer on those estimates. We will talk more about city utilities probably in January, early February. We'll be back to you with that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the presentation. Liability insurance there, I have in there stable and reduced. I know that's a little hard to see. It's kind of small. I am struggling with that here myself. But so there's different areas in our liability insurance. Overall, the League of Minnesota Cities, since we were last together on this in September, is projecting that our rates are actually going to decrease. So that's a good thing. I have not seen that in the 26 years I've been at the city, that our rates have actually decreased. It's one thing to hold them stable, but so stable and decreasing there. We have something in there called employment liability. It's based on number of FTEs, since we're really only adding one. I'm decreasing that part of the liability 8%. The expenditures based, I'm keeping at 0. The rates are decreasing 11%, but I want to gauge that a bit because, of course, our expenditures are going up and some of our capital projects. So I'm being a little conservative there, but so keeping that stable. Property, there's no increase on property on the rates, but of course the inflation value on the value of properties are going up. So I kept that in there at the 4. Auto insurance still at 8. They're saying physical damage up 10%, auto liability up 5. Equipment rental, that's our internal equipment rental at 10%, kept that the same as September. Workers' comp, the league is saying those rates could be going down 15%. I've built in a decrease of 9.25 because, of course, with just a 2.8 in raises going up, I kind of calculated looking at the rates from the league, what they're projecting, and I come up with a 9.25% decrease is what's in this budget. So that's a little summary of the assumptions. This is what we proposed in September. So this was before. So proposed revenues, 74.7 million. Proposed expenditures, 71.1. The proposed tax levy in September, 8.3 million, or an 8.76% increase. And you can see the tax capacity rate there at 55.679, which would have been a 3.48% increase in that tax rate then that's applied to the value of the property. So this is before. The next slide here is what we're proposing here tonight from the tax levy committee. Bringing the revenues and expenditures each down. You can see down to 69.9 and 67.9 on the expenditures. The proposed tax levy, we decreased it from September $153,000, bringing it to $8,147,000. That's a change from 2023 of $515,450, or 6.75%. The tax capacity rate then would calculate to be 54.652, or a 1.57% increase over the tax rate from 2023. This is one of the resolutions we'll be looking for tonight, is setting that tax levy. That's the number $8,147,000 recommended by your tax levy committee. Okay, what did we change since September? So we did adjust some of our capital projects within those schedules based on estimates and kind of the scheduling of some of the projects. So that was a net decrease of 3.4 million, 3,424,000. Okay, then we bring in the demolition of the old sewer plant, 917,400. We had that in the 2023 budget as well, at 800,000, I believe. But that project is, basically all going to happen in 24, so we're putting it in there as well. Again, out of the sewer fund, but it's part of the overall expenses. We removed the franchise fee from everything in the budget presentation now. After September, that is out. We will come back and discuss that more with the city council, but that impacted the revenues. Decreased 1.3 million. And then we had in there in September 750,000 going to the capital project fund for some potential streets. Again, those are out. There's nothing of franchise fees in this budget at this time. We updated enterprise fund projections. Depreciation is some of the bigger numbers in there, just closer to actual now with what we would look at. Workers' compensation, we talked about that, a 9.25% decrease, and changing the liability insurances as well, brought it down 107. We are proposing eliminating the city's membership in the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and that would save $30,707. And then some increases on the revenue side. State police aid up a bit, I think 29,000, and some other state aids as well. We have now received those in since September. We received more than what was budgeted, and we would expect to receive at least that much next year. So that's why I adjust those revenues up. So that's kind of the main changes from September. Okay, the total budget again broke down by fund type. We have the general fund, you can see, at $15,392,72. Again, I probably said this year after year, but that's the general operating of the city. That's where the work you see being done, our street crews, park and rec, police, fire, community development, all that happens in your general fund of the city. Special revenue fund, that's for funds that have a dedicated revenue source. The public library, the Port Authority, the Bigwood Center, our tax increment districts, tax abatement districts are in those numbers. Debt service funds, that's where we make our bond payments. You can see the revenue is much higher than the expense because that's the starting and the collection of the local option sales tax, and those debt service payments will come on in 2025. So you can see we'll be accumulating cash during 24, starting to make those payments in 25. Capital projects, we have separate slides on that. That's where we build things. Enterprise funds, that's the liquor store, water, sewer, storm, and refuse fund. Internal service, that's our equipment fleet where we purchase the equipment, rent it out to the other departments of the city, coming down to those totals that we mentioned earlier. This is just in a pie chart formula and very similar to what we saw in September. The big change in the revenue side is the bonds. You can see going from let's see, bonds at 3% there, up to 20%, 29?
Yeah, 29.
29, my bifocals are doing fun tonight. That is the issuing of bonds for the sales tax projects that, be paid for by the sales tax. So we see a larger increase there. The 10.8 for the Aquatic Center, 5.2 for the De Lagoon project, and then street projects as well that are put in there in estimates at this time. So that's the big change, big driver there in the changes in how the slices look. Same on the expense side with the capital outlay area, where that would show. Again, you build the project, you issue the bonds, and then you pay for the bonds over time with the sales tax being the big drivers there. Here was the proposed levy again, just reiterating that from September as presented previously, the 8.76 increase at 8.3. Tonight, before you is the $8,147,000 or 6.75% in dollars. We went through this in September. Some of our cost drivers that are basically fixed costs. We've been in settled contracts and our debt service going on. The debt service there, the 244,100 is for phase 2 of the downtown, and the 2 loans for the dairy. We're starting to levy for those as well. Equipment rental, the 10%. Workers' comp, I changed that. That is down now. It's still a slight increase, but it's down from the larger increase that it was before with our 9.25 decrease in rates. Utilities up a little bit from September as we kind of look through the year and getting closer to the end of the year. The remainders should be the same. The tax abatement, parking lot purchase, again, that parking lot is next to the Red River Mill. We have $32,000 in for 5 years to make that purchase. That was part of making that project go. So coming down with the subtotal of fixed costs, less the LGA increase. We're receiving a bump of $578,000, a very nice increase in LGA, brings the net impact down to $682,200, or that would have been, about a 9% increase in the levy. So you can see when you hear from your tax levy committee that they were working on this, we're coming in at 6.75, less than what the fixed costs would be. The process, Otter Tail County Assessor determines the market values. Then the property tax class rates are established by the state of Minnesota. Those are applied to the market value. You as a city council set the levy at the flat dollar amount. There's often, confusion about that with market values and whatnot. You set a flat dollar amount. You tell Otter Tail County, go collect this $8,147,000. They use the value on which how to spread that over the pie. So kind of finishes that out, how the tax levy is divided, to get your tax capacity. And then the rate that we talked about is applied towards that tax capacity to calculate the property tax bill. This is just in graphic form with our levies and rates. You can see the rates actually took, a large decrease there. But that's because values, as we all know, went up so much over the last few years. So that flows into that calculation and brings the rate down a bit. That's why everyone's tax bill can look a bit different. It depends on what the value happens to your individual home versus what the levy is going in. So every individual is different. Here's a snapshot of all taxing jurisdictions with the tax rate. You can see the cities at 54.652, and the estimated tax then for a $250,000 home would go from $1,266 to $1,286, or that $500,000 business for $4,977, up to $5,055. Then it shows the tax rates by jurisdiction coming down to a total of 106.102, down from the 107.189 in 2023. Okay, taxes and state aid. We've talked about this. Our levy there, the 6.75. The components that make that up, the general fund, our general operating fund, is 3.26. The debt service for the new projects, 3.2. We have a little bit of an increase in tax abatement levies of 0.11%. I just wanted to point out the total tax abatement levies are 121,500. So you can see we're capturing that new value. So in essence, we're capturing that for the time of the abatement. And then when that comes on, then everyone will share in that new value. Little bit for the RTC levy. I checked today, our cash balance in that fund, we're down to $1,700 about. So over the years from 2007, that is about out. Thus why we're needing to start do a bit of a levy here for CARE up there. Local government aid, we talked about that increase of 578. And then the city will also receive one-time public safety aid of $614,500, of which $145 is applied in this budget. $45 for an elementary school resource officer, and $100,000 applied against the operations of the police department for 2024. And then police and fire will work on allocating the remainder of that to the allowable uses for those funds. And Andrew, remind me, there's no deadline on the expenditure of those funds, I believe.
That's correct, yep.
Just a graph showing our LGA. You can see we're kind of back up to those 2002 levels. General government expenditures, pretty stable from 23 to 24. City is experiencing inflation all over the place. We see that in how we've had to adjust some wages to maintain and find employees. Our equipment costs have really gone up, 20, 30, 40% on different pieces of equipment. We're up for negotiations with contracts during 2024, so that'll of course impact 25 and beyond. We have 3 elections next year, so of course we didn't have any in this year, so that's a new expense for 24. Kind of alternates, of course, every other year. And then we are adding a new employee to the building inspection and stormwater area, divvying that out 60% and 60-40. So, police department budget at $4.7 million. You can see our 24 officers, 5 office staff, adding that elementary school resource officer. Fire department at $942,000, 3 full-time staff, 36 volunteers. We're maybe up even a bit from that now. Is Ryan still here?
Bill, I had heard that they interviewed 4 new ones last Monday, and one of those happens to be a doctor.
All right. Good to have
pretty
those
neat.
resources, right? So yeah, things are good at the fire department. And they wanted to point out they're always continuing to look at their capital needs too and setting money aside for that as well, for the buildings and capital maintenance needs. Streets and highways, 10% increase in there for the street materials, overlays, and seal coats. This is on the operation, the annual maintenance kind of things. This is not reconstruction dollars. This is The city council has, been taking leaps at this over the last number of years. 10%, a few different years, 5% some other years. So I know that's been your goal, is to pump more money into streets. So tax levy committee bringing that before you again with another 10% in the general fund for that. We did just complete construction of the sand salt storage facility. We could no longer stay in the state of Minnesota facility. We had to build our own. We've built in the expense then through building rental between funds, again, to replenish the equipment fund and provide for the future capital maintenance of that building as well. We talked about the parking lot next to the old Red River Mill over here. And of course, there will be other street reconstruction projects going on next year as well. Parks and Recreation at $2.4 million. We have 29 parks on 551 acres. So summer of '24, we'll see this splash pad, this across the river, phase 2 of the downtown, will be completed and operational. And then construction will be happening on the Aquatic Center we talked about for 10.8 and the Day Lagoon improvement projects. And that is the 0.5% sales tax. We'll be funding those. There's just a little snapshot of that. The 0.5 local sales tax is in this budget, estimating at $1.55 million. Collected, we started in October 1st of '23, and it planned to run through '37. And of course, those are the two projects we've talked about. Economic development, we're maintaining the funding for Greater Fergus Falls at $50,000 for 2024. We have various tax increment districts, tax abatement districts. The city also has our revolving loan programs that are operated by Business Development for Fergus Falls. And then our Community Development Department and Visit Fergus Falls, that's funded by the local lodging tax. Port Authority, that levy is up to up $12,000 up to $72,000 for 2024. They also own the CBHH facility, the Community Behavioral Health Hospital, collecting rent from the state of Minnesota that fully funds that. The Port Authority also owns the old Armory building, and it's operated as a special education facility by Lakes Country Service Co-op. Again, the port collects the rent on that to make the debt service on those bonds, and they fully maintain and operate that facility as well. The port owns industrial park property, residential property, as well for future development, and then the dairy property, and then we talked about those two loans that we're now starting to levy for payments on those. Fergus Falls Public Library, budget of $1,017,255. Majority of that is property tax funded there with $890. I think that's up about $34,000 from last year. Regional Library Aid, another funding source at $95. And there's just some statistics from 2022, and we'll look forward to Gail's statistics for 2023 as well. I think she's, yep, there she is. Bigwood Event Center. We went through a presentation just at the last council meeting? So I won't go through this in detail, but it's under city management right now. As you know, we had a 20-year history of external management, and that contract came to an end. For 2024, we do have a transfer built in the budget for operations of $124,000. As you recall, when we got back into that, because it was no longer managed by the external party, it was projected to lose money for 3 years at that time with the hopes of towards profitability. So, we'll work on this again next year, but this is what's in the budget for you this year. And we're looking at that coming from the liquor store this time instead of the general fund. So that's the $124,000 from the liquor store. Capital projects, street projects in for $7.4 million. The Aquatic Center, Day Lagoon, the dairy property, that's the state grant. I did just get the budget off to the state of Minnesota on that, getting that grant agreement rolling. So hopefully we'll be coming back sometime soon with more on that project to you. RTC Preservation Project, this is just the estimated balance of what's left of the existing $3.5 million grant. There's no plans for that at this time, but when we're all closed out with the current one, we'll come back to you with what that actual remaining balance is and where we go with that. Sidewalks annual levy there at $30,000. So again, we're going to continue to work on this capital plan and bring that back in January, February timeframe and talk franchise fees a bit more with you at that time. You can see this slide is basically blank now. In September, it had all the verbiage about franchise fees. We'll be back in '24 for you as a city council to discuss that further. Enterprise funds, we're going to come back with a rate analysis too. And that's because if we do franchise fees and/or you want to do an aggressive street plan that's tied to the capital improvement program, that's tied to all the infrastructure under the streets. When you do a lot of infrastructure under the streets, it's tied to the utility rates. So all this has to come together as kind of a puzzle. So that's when we're coming to you in January, February, so we can talk through that. How aggressive do you want to be with streets? Because then that will be a cost driver in the utility rates at all. So utility funds, liquor store, this is just based on projections. Always a very profitable business. You can see operating income projected at $956,000. Okay, now the refuse fund, that's not dependent on streets, but we'll come back soon with something there too, because we certainly have some inflationary increases we need to deal with there. One thing in particular, our tipping fees where we dispose of our garbage. We go around and collect it. We dispose of it with Otter Tail County. Our rates are going up there. So I know we'll have some increases in the refuse fund operations. Right now I have 3% in here. I'm not asking you to approve that 3% tonight. We will also talk about the demolition cell as we talk more. We've had a separate meeting about that. The expansion out there, we'll come back in the near future with more on that as well. Again, not asking for change in rates. And you're going to see now I'll be a broken record because the remaining enterprise funds, I just put 3% in increases in revenue, not asking you for changes in those rates tonight. Sewer fund, 3%. Below this line, we'll have a special item for the $917,000 demolition, but that doesn't play into operating income. So at 3%, with kind of an aggressive plan, we'd be at $54,000. Water, 3% again, estimated $890 there for operating income. Stormwater, $184,625. Again, 3%, and we did add that employee, 40% here. Remember, 60% in the building department. Equipment fund, this is our internal service fund, 10% increase in the rates for that because of all the inflationary costs of capital equipment. Okay, next steps. You can breathe a sigh of relief. This is my last slide. We're here tonight. We need to have a final levy certified to Otter Tail County by December 28th. And again, I put in here between January and March of '24, we will talk more about streets, franchise fees, utility rates. Again, we're not asking for those tonight. We're talking about this total budget and then the levy amount. So I will stop there if you have any questions for me. Otherwise, we'll open it up for the public to speak to us.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bill. At this time, we're going to open up to the public. But I just want to say thank you, Bill. Thank you, Sandy, Scott, Laura, all the council members that gave input over the past couple months as we've gone through this process. Appreciate that work. So I know it's a big task, and thank you to your team, Bill, Sandy.
And you from the tax levy committee, did I forget anything?
Yeah, Andrew, too, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to forget about you there. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So at this point, before we take any action on the budget, we will open the floor to the public, give them the opportunity to comment on the budget for 2024. Just ask 2024, would you please step to the lectern, state your name for the record, and make your comments. Floor is open.
Mark Layton. Bill, the general fund budget, is that the 15,390?
That sounds right. Let me look.
Just checking the right number here.
15,392, 372.
Well, this council has seen my budgets and my proposals before. I've urged that the council opened up their budget sessions to the public. My initial general fund review earlier this year, comparing, again, just the general fund, cutting that $1.5 million. If you cut that in half, the 24 came in at about 12.5. You're at 15.4 now. If you cut 8,500 off that, you're going to be at about 14.5. I would like to highlight a few of those quick changes that would not reduce any services to the community. We have a department that spends $160,000. We could cut miscellaneous items across the board. I think parks could go down 200. I thought the budget was $3 million all these years. And in regards to economic development, there's another $400,000, including Greater Fergus Falls. Greater Fergus Falls over the last 5 years has spent $1.3 million, and I would like to have someone tell me what they've done. Obviously, have supported a staff and a building and some advertisement. Fergus Falls continues to lose business. Bill did a presentation on the Greater Fergus, the Bigwood Center, very well laid out. I look at it since 1921 and most recently since the city's reopened it. If you were to look at the 2001 investment of $750,000, Bill, I'm not so sure how much the $180,000 was spent on that 3-year contract because it was terminated right away. We spent $328,000 on AV, $10,000 on a upgrade to air conditioning. It appears to me that in 22, in prior years, it was a loss of 100. 23 was a loss of 90. We're proposing a loss in 24 of 124,000. That investment, $750,000 at 4%. You're looking at a $90,000 3-year opportunity cost. Since inception, you're looking at a $690,000 opportunity cost. We look at the $380,000 at 4% over the last 3 years. That's a $40,000 opportunity cost. And the operating losses over the last couple of years, $314,000 at 4%. The opportunity costs around 37. You look at the Bigwood Event Center. The city has lost $1.7 million to $2.4 million, either in direct money or opportunity cost. I've been a strong proponent of shuttering that. I understand the 3-year rule in business to turn a profit. It's not going to happen. I have other properties in other communities, and I can tell you, for a matter of fact, real estate taxes are going down 10.7%, not going up. And that community has a pool, and that community is a county seat, et cetera, et cetera. Finalize this, we all know from the State of Minnesota Auditor's Department, Fergus Falls is high on the totem pole. Property tax revenue per population is $550,000. That's 7 out of 9 communities our size. The average is 494,000 or 494, and we're at 550. Total general expense per population, Fergus Falls is 1,106, average is 974. Again, number 7. Now, use of funds gets to be a little unique. Every community is a little different. But the total use of funds in Fergus Falls, effective the last auditor's report from the state of Minnesota, shows that Fergus Falls spends $2,239 per person. Number one, get the Golden Goose Award out of the other 9 communities. I think it's quite evident, based on what you heard tonight and what you've been hearing, that this city has to make some tough decisions. You've obligated this council and future councils in this city for 14 years on the spending, not including what needs to be done with roads, water, sewer. Now is the time. I would recommend this board not approve the budget, despite the gate you got on December 31st, and cut spending. It's not that difficult. I'll be more than glad to meet each one of you and show you where the 850 is really easy. And you wouldn't reduce services, and 850,000 is a lot of money. Despite 10 million or 30 million or 300 million. Mr. Kwame said it's really what the taxpayer can afford. Real estate taxes and fees. It does matter. That number does matter. You have to quit spending money. No different than across the United States. I lay odds that this thing's approved, and I lay odds that you can't make the cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Layton. Anyone else wishing to address the council, please feel free to do so at this time.
Good evening, Michael Burgraff. I want to say thank you to all of you for your service, for the job you do, and for keeping this city progressive and where we're at. It is hard work, and thank God we have a Bill Sunmore. These numbers are crazy to most people, which means we sit back and expect you to do your jobs. And I think you're all doing a very fine job. That's what we hired you to do. That's what we elected you to do. And this city, in the 10, 12 years now that I've been here, it has made some tremendous changes for the good. Things happen. No one is perfect. No council is perfect. No body is perfect. No city is perfect. But my goodness, I think we have been moving in a direction that is good for the people of Fergus Falls. The things that we do, the parks that we have, the people that we see walking our streets, the communities that come, the people that move to our community, because they look and say, this is a really great place to raise kids, to be able to play outside, and it's not killing us financially. Thank you all for the incredible job that you do, and I hope that's echoed from so many of the people in this town who are not here tonight because they believe that you are doing your job. Thank you, Mr. Sunmore, for everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burgraff. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Yes, Mr. Cookman.
My name is Dwayne Cookman. Bill, outstanding job. One of the meetings that Al Krameyer had, and we heard the discussion from the Pebble Lake Golf Course, is the people behind the scenes making the difference. They're volunteering. Okay. Do they, let's say the Pebble Lake Golf Course, or does anybody else submit reports like Bill in the certain areas? I mean, that'd be very interesting to hear an open discussion. But outstanding again. And I thank you, Al, for having those town meetings that was Bemidji, Perm, and how the community got together behind the scenes and made it happen. So it didn't come out, from the tax levy and stuff like that, just that everybody was pulling the same way. I mean, it's just, I see such an opportunity And it's fun to watch because this next year, it's going to grow. I just see it. I see the communication. I see the people working hard. The golf course, you know, who knew that they were making all this stuff happen? This, you probably did.
Yep.
What percentage was just behind the scenes and nobody ever knew about?
Quite a little bit. There's a lot of volunteer work that goes on out there that nobody knows about.
Yeah. That is the key. You get the people involved, the community thrives. Keep up the good work, get the communication going. People will help out. People want to help out.
Thank you, Mr. Cookman. Anyone else? Before we bring it back to the council? Please.
Hi, my name's just Tammy Earing. I'm a homeschool mom of 4 here in the city of Fergus Falls. My husband works full time and I stay home. I stay home because I want to be home with my kids. So I hope I am paying these taxes, and I just ask that you tread lightly because you're taking the tax money from my families. I've chosen to stay home. You're taking the tax money and spending it. And we've had to make tough decisions as a family to do some things and not do some things because financially we can't afford them right now. And so as a city council, as a city, I ask you to consider me as a little person paying taxes. And yes, I enjoy the parks. I love the library. I love these things. I love the city. But this gentleman made some great points about cutting some things. And I thought, wow, he's got some great points that I don't want people just to overlook and throw out because maybe, I don't know why. You would maybe look at him that way. I know that the city is great, and I appreciate all the work that you've done too. I just ask that you consider the taxpayers. Me as a wife staying home so I can raise my kids and be a homeschool mom. We're paying a lot now for school taxes, this levy. So overall, we're gonna pay 20% more. I don't get the benefit of the school. That's my choice. But again, we're paying the taxes. And so just with accountability of finances, I ask you to tread lightly and consider all things and consider possible solutions to cut down on the taxes that are really eating the middle class and causing us to have to make tough decisions to cut back on our finances too. So my husband gave me these statistics. He said since 2022, our personal taxes have gone up 1,678%, or $1,678, and that's 31% since 2022. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Tammy.
Good afternoon, evening, council. My name is Jeremiah Jensen. Me and my wife just recently moved here from Tennessee, so pardon me for being new to this. I would like to recommend, just like the gentleman over here stated would, for the council to relook at their budget and possibly look at where they can make cuts other than, like the young lady had said earlier, on the working class. If they could look at the proposed tax increase from 85% to maybe lowering the property tax increase to maybe 50% if possible, or look at other cuts somewhere else than within the budget. That's all I have.
Bill, do you want to clarify that? 85%.
My name's Jolene Carlstead. I recently had lost my husband a couple years ago, and I am trying to survive on my own, but the cost of the property taxes and stuff is getting to be so unreal that I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to lose my house? I'm working, but financially, the cost of the increase is just ridiculous to try and make it. I don't know if there's a chance that they could lower the cost of the property taxes. I mean, for a middle class and lower class people, what are they going to do? Lose their house? And try and find some other place to live? I mean, I can't even afford to rent a house. I'm trying to do this all on my own, and I don't want to lose this house. I've been raised around this community all my life, but if things keeps getting worse, I don't know what I will do. So I'm just considering that I wish the property tax could be lowered, because my property tax has gone up 83% across the board, and that's ridiculous for what I make and what I'm trying to keep in my living expenses and stuff. So I wish you would consider lowering that property tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlstead.
Kathy Colling, Fergus Falls. Just a few comments. When it has to do with all of us talking about prices going up in so many areas, we talk about utilities, we talk about property taxes, we talk about a new school, we talk about possibly needing a new water treatment plant, and everything, every place you buy, I don't care, the prices are just going up. As a retired person living here and thinking of what the possibility of even a new school coming up in this area, I think we're looking at putting a school here. And if anybody's taking a look at what's coming from St. Paul, you take a look at what they're teaching in the schools today. We're looking at flat-out critical race theory, which is going to point out that everyone in this room is an oppressor, and it's the same kind of thing that's going to be taught in the classrooms, and it's going to be causing more of a divide with children.
Ms. Collins, we are talking about the Fergus Falls City Council budget. I'm going to ask you to stay on topic, please. This is a public hearing for the 2024 Fergus Falls City Council budget. So I'm just asking you to keep. You're welcome to speak. I'm just asking you to stay on topic.
You're telling me that a new school isn't having to do with Fergus Falls?
Not this budget here. This is a budget for the taxes for the 2024
Well, I guess maybe I'm just making a
levy.
point on expenses that could possibly be coming up. There are so many things that we really need to take a look at, and especially with people with fixed incomes, and the number of people in Fergus Falls who are on really fixed incomes. And you take a look at, like, I look at myself and a really fixed income, and having just been hit with having to buy a new, I mean, nobody gives a rip, but a new used car, a new refrigerator, everything else. And I take a look at how I have to pare back on just basic expenditures. So when I think of all the other things that people are considering and more taxes coming up, it's a big issue. And I'm talking to plenty of people around town who say the same things. Something has to be looked at, and what Layton has to say should really be given some consideration. And if things can be pared back, I would suggest that you really look at it. I guess enough said. Thank you for the time. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Anyone else? Okay. We'll move along. At this time, we'll consider a resolution adopting the 2024 levy.
Your Honor, I got a couple of questions for Bill. If we can bring it back to council to ask questions.
Oh, yeah, of course, I did. I skipped
So,
that part.
okay, no, that's problem, not a problem. Bill, kind of a couple of things. Obviously, on the fixed cost increases, obviously, we were at 1.3 million. It was slide 12. The LGA obviously increase of more or less 600,000, half of that. How sustainable do we think that is? Because obviously next year, if we don't get the same LGA support, then we've got to find 600,000 plus whatever else increases.
I mean, and
I mean,
Mayor,
I know
maybe you can speak better about LGA than I
Yeah.
can, but when we look at the history, for a long time, we were very flat. So
Yep.
this is a boost in revenue. I mean, I don't think we're going to continue to see boosts like that. My hope would be it would stay stable, but I don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know what that's so,
Why not, Bill?
yeah, why not? Because I'm not in control of the legislature.
Yeah. I just think it's something we got to be aware of, that we're really increasing the budget by 1.3 million. We're not increasing the budget by 600,000 because we have obviously that additional income coming in. So I think that's kind of a point that we need to make. The other one that I'm concerned about is this 615,000 that's coming in from public safety. We're spending 145 of that. And again, that's kind of the same deal, that we're subsidizing a number with some money that is not necessarily sustainable. And then when that fund runs out, we've got to make up that 145 plus whatever.
Yeah. On the 45,000 part of that, because again, police department is applying 100,000 towards operational changes, 45,000. The plan is to use that for 4 years and then try to step that in to operations as well. But you're right, it's a one-time source.
Yep.
Granted, using it over 4 years for the elementary school resource officer, if we don't phase it in, then we won't be able to keep that position going forward. But the chief's plan was to have that in for 4 years, using those one-time dollars to fund it for the 4 years.
Right. And then I don't know, I think one of the things that kind of created a lot of confusion overall with the budget was the additional spend on the sales tax projects, the aquatic center, and obviously the construction, and that increased the budget together with kind of the dairy property by $20 million. And I don't know whether or not there's a way, from a communication perspective, that we can separate those so that we talk about the operating fund of the city, but I think when we talked earlier, when we rolled everything up, and it looked like the city's budget was going from, which it has obviously in a reality, but
Yep.
it went from 45,000 to 70,000, and so a million, sorry, and so I think it led to some confusion about all of a sudden we've got this big hike in the budget. And obviously, it's a one-time type project, and whether we can kind of somewhat market them as two separate items going forward. And then I equally think that, not to, a little bit on kind of obviously we had the golf course in here, obviously saying how good, obviously they're presently doing, but in part, if the city had not funded and supported the golf course during, the lean years that it had, the golf course wouldn't be here today, to be, a pride and joy and an organization that's in the black. So I think before we kind of, take too many harsh steps on the big wood, we have to look at a deeper look into what it could be before we make that decision. But I think, obviously the city has to make investments in certain amenities that aren't going to make money. And I think that's what we've probably got to do a little bit. Overall, we've got a number of projects that are going to come to fruition in the next couple of years, which are going to be deficit projects. And they are going to push up, obviously the property tax. So I think we have to start looking, when you look at this 60% of the general fund budget is labor. And I think we have to look at, like, what of those pieces can we outsource? I'm not sure, the gentleman that came from Precision, obviously was Mike. Was talking about, obviously, that they could, for example, do fertilizer and chemical. But I think that's something that budgeting is almost a continuum process. It doesn't really start in June and end in December. So I think that's something that we have to look at. And I think, we've started the discussion about RFPs. And I think, when we turn, the new year and we get this budget behind us, I think that we very much need to start looking at RFPs for even sort of basic things. And, I mean, I've written 4 down. Banking would be obviously one of them. I think somehow we have to encourage people to go to EFT or some form of electronic payment, including, if people wish to pay by a credit card, the state of Minnesota allows, obviously, to charge them for that privilege. I think that's something we need to take a closer look at. I think we need to look at communication. There are organizations that do communication, and we could be specific about what we need. Included in that, I would say, it sounds a small item, but I think we should look at cell phones. Who has a cell phone in the city? Why do they have a cell phone? How do we justify that they have a cell phone? Can we do tiers of reimbursement for a cell phone for what people need? Or can we have an on-call cell phone that passed around? What data plans do they have? Are they really using it for city data? And then I think, we need to look at, obviously, legal services. That's a $200,000 budget item. In the same way that, we appreciate the service that we get, but, if we're looking at what we do in terms of serving the public, some of these things we have to lift that rock up and ask, are we getting, the best service? And I think we could go on, but it's a long enough evening. So I won't add some more RFP items to you, but I could, if you will.
And I want to make just one slight comment in regards to the golf course and talking about, when he was talking about the fertilizer and all that, that is Pebble Lake Golf
Yeah, I
Club
know it
does
is.
that. That is not in the city's budget. We're not doing the chemicals, we're not doing the operations. So I didn't want any confusion thinking that the city has all those operating costs in here. They are not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I was using that as illustration,
Yep.
as somebody that offering a service that, may be able to, and that doesn't always mean that they can do it, more efficiently than, the city is already doing it.
Right.
Thanks, Anthony.
That's-
I would just like to thank Anthony for bringing items up that, with the budget regarding that maybe we should not just look at it this time of year. I feel this should be looked at probably monthly throughout the year. I can't remember the last time we had a report from a department head or from staff on what's going on in these departments. That's where it's at, is we need to hear it from department heads, what's going on in their departments, to make some changes or to make some adjustments to pay for these things. Because if it's not talked about, it just gets added on. And that's where we need to get really in depth. Hey, we need to hear these reports at a council meeting instead of, we don't have any reports tonight. We don't have any reports tonight. And we skip those 2 items. Historically, those 2 items are always skipped on a council meeting. From what I remember, what I've experienced in this last 11 months. We need to look at these things. The department heads need to tell us what is going on. Why do we need that? Why do you need that? It has to be justified. It's like going to your parent, hey, Dad, I'd really like to have this. Well, why? Mom, I'd really like to have that. Well, what do you need that for? You know, it's just simple dialogue. And I think this budget issue could be kind of taken care of if we went through this approach. And I'm all up for looking at every penny that can be reduced. Because Jeremiah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Jolene, she's gone now. I know her. And it breaks my heart to see somebody up here like that who is in that financial situation. It shouldn't have to be. It's because we haven't been accountable. And that's where I'm upset with. You know, passion, now I am a little bit upset. Just because I feel we need to hear these things from the department heads. Where's the money at? You know, I just feel awful for her. And Jeremiah, what brought you to Fergus Falls from? More money. More money, okay? That's an awesome answer right there. Let's try to get you to keep some of that money so you can spend it in some of these stores in this town. And I appreciate you of thinking of us up north here. We're Yankees. Don't hold that against us. But I feel that we really need to start looking at these things in very much detail. I know there's been a lot of work go on this. I know there has been tons of it. And I applaud you all for doing that. But this is something, it's just a different way to look at this. Why cram it in? It's like we're cramming for a final here. Well, we know that never works usually too well. I know it never did for me. But as I went through it throughout the year, or through your time, you knew how to answer those questions. So please, can we start to have some department head reports to us? Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Go ahead, Scott.
So I'll just kind of answer a little bit of Al's. When we started in May, we had department heads submit their budgets. When do they have to have them in by? I don't remember when it is. Bill, can you tell me when to have them
We
in?
typically have them in June. You know, I send
Right.
out to May, have people start getting things
Right.
prepared into June.
So when I go back to May, we started looking at different things, I think more or less to educate Laura and I when we were on there. And we go through these things line by line, Al. I mean, you can't believe the time you spend. You know, Bill's got a book this thick, and we don't get through very much of it in each meeting, but we keep working hard trying to cut. And then it gets down to the end, you're cutting 1,000 here, trying to figure out where to make it work. But these guys on their, you're talking about their, the staff or the department heads, they bring that budget to us and we work that thing over pretty hard. They ask for a lot and we don't give them a lot. We cut it back as much as we can. We know where it goes. If I have a question, we bring them in. We bring Brian, we brought Brian into one of our meetings, looked at his and talked about different things. We've talked about so many things. I mean, it's hard to believe that that you would say that we don't look at it close enough because we do. The tax levy committee does. I mean, that's what the two council members are on there for, and Ben. I mean, we look at it, we ask the questions, and we want input from all the other members. And I've had input, but I mean, it's just what would we meet in 2 weeks, two times a month. I mean, it was a lot of work.
Sometimes
Can we come up to
weekly.
this? Huh?
Sometimes weekly.
Sometimes, yeah. And so if we don't talk to the departments, that's not true. We look at them. I mean, it's really a hard process. And once I was so happy to get to do it, it took a lot of my time, and it was a great education. So Mr. Layton thinks we can cut these budgets by a lot, and he doesn't have all his information. I don't believe that we look at the rest of it like we have, but he could get it if he wanted to. But we can't cut it by 1.5 million. That's impossible. There's no way, absolutely no way at all. You can't. We're trying to cut 0.2%, and it was just hard to do. But to cut 1.5 million, absolutely not. I just don't believe it. So we should get on to the vote.
Could I just say one thing, Scott?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do understand that, but what I'm trying to get at is let the council know it's on our agenda. How come we're not hearing it? I know you started in May or sooner than that or around that time, but we need to know what's going on in these departments. You know, it might help you make these decisions. So I do understand what you're saying, but yet I don't know if you heard what I was saying.
I heard it, but it's just like we work so hard, and then what do you want to hear from them every time they take a step? Because we give them a budget, and this is what they work with, and at the end of the year, their budget is used.
It's like any.
We're not going to go back and
So,
forth.
okay, you're right, okay.
Go ahead, Andrew, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to speak to the budget, the way we do the process is prescribed in the city's charter. And so, we're not going to change that tonight, and that's the constitution in which we work with, right? So that's why it's done the way it's done. And I would argue, Your Honor, that, we have policies in place that have been adopted by the council over the years that if there's expenditures within the approved budget, department heads have the authority to do those. If they're not within the approved budget, you see them standing at the podium before you. Every single council meeting, there's department heads standing at that podium, making requests, making recommendations, and justifying exactly what they're presenting to the council. So if somebody here is insinuating that department heads are not keeping the council up to date on what's going on or working outside of the authority granted by the council or the charter of the city, I'd love to have that discussion anytime, any place. So there's reasons why things are done the way they're done, and a lot of people not associated with the city that are on the Charter Commission have put these processes in place for a reason for many, many years. So I just think, keeping the emotion out of it and looking at facts, these things are being done, and I believe they're being done well. And the council, if they read their emails and packets and they're engaged, they're going to know exactly what's going on within the city. And we're doing a good job to communicate that out to the public as well. So,
Thanks, Andrew. Tom?
yeah, I'm not qualified to be a city administrator. I'm not qualified to be a finance director. I'm not interested in micromanaging. I am perfectly willing to put my faith in the city staff that are trained professionals that live here and want to see this city succeed because it's their livelihood and many, many other reasons. And so, I trust that our city staff is going to keep us informed, and I am comfortable delegating the responsibility for managing the things they know how to manage to our qualified city staff. And that's all I have to say on that. And I applaud the good work that you do. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. All right, so any other comments from the council? Scott?
On page 15 of the presentation that Bill showed us tonight, the line that I guess I'd like to highlight is the second line from the top, estimated city tax on a $250,000 home. Estimated for 2024 is $1,286, an increase of only $20 from the current year. I think that the tax levy has done a terrific job in presenting a budget that has increasing the cost to an average homeowner of only $20, when, as it's been stated, costs are going up everywhere. For us to look at a budget that has this minimal impact on the average homeowner, I think is just remarkable. I was totally expecting, as this process was going through this fall, that we would see not just a 6% increase, but something easily twice that. So again, I commend the staff for the work they've done, and I think that the city's citizens of the town should be very grateful and realize that this is really about the best we could hope for. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Just one, I wrote down earlier, communication breakdown, and I think that was one of the things that was apparent tonight, that people were talking about their taxes as a global number going up, as opposed to the city's portion of the global number. I know we've had the county in here to try to explain, and I realize that I really am dumb because I don't understand how the county calculates the value of my house and how much property tax I pay, because it changes every year, and I think, oh, is this going to be a good year or a bad year? But I think, the school is going up by, their proposal was 10%. The county was, 5%. The county breaks out community development as a line item. there's several line items on your property tax statement that the city has no impact on. And I think we don't get that message out there that we are only a portion of your property tax. What the county does, what the school does, impacts your total tax bill. And as Scott mentioned just now, we're only going up by $20 a year on a $250,000 house. And I think it was like $87 on a business. But I think somehow we have to get that message out there better than we do, that we are a portion of it, not we aren't responsible for your entire bill. I wish people were as passionate about talking to, county commissioners about tax increases as they are coming to the city, because it's good that people come. I mean, it's good that we hear from people. It keeps it real. Otherwise, there would be no fun sitting up here if we didn't have people come and talk to us. So, thank you.
Your Honor.
Thanks, Anthony.
And to that,
No, you go ahead.
yeah, thank you, Your Honor.
Andrew, sorry.
To that point, Councilmember Hicks, I can say when we met as a tax levy dozens and dozens of times, we had those exact conversations in that room, thinking about the people on fixed incomes and how that's going to impact them. And that's the frame of mind that we use as we look to create a budget that balances interests of 14,000 people while keeping in mind costs are rising and we have fixed income individuals in town. They can all attest, I probably brought it up several different times that, I had somebody pull me aside that I'm very close with and said, $100 increase to you is a lot different than a $100 increase to somebody who is on a fixed income, who already doesn't know where the money's going to come from. And that's the perspective that a lot of us, if not all of us, bring to that committee. And I think you see that reflected in some of these decisions that we had to make to reduce the budget from our fixed cost number down to what it is today. And, I think that commitment and dedication is going to remain every month of the year and every time we have a meeting between now and the next budget. So really appreciate the conversation tonight, the viewpoints of the people in the public. And we hear from others too that don't come to public meetings, and just being mindful of that, I think, is important as we work, especially going forward into next year's budget, because we know that work begins as early as tomorrow. So I appreciate all the work that's been done this year.
We can fix the income issue for you.
Yeah. Well, speaking of cuts.
So
I
at this
appreciate
point,
that.
I would entertain it. Oh, Mark, yes, please.
Mark Hermes. I've been to quite a few meetings in the last several months. And I've noticed that Mr. Layton has been here quite a few times. And it seems as though he has a passion for trying to save the city some money and passing it on to the people of Fergus. What he presented tonight and what he's done for some of the other nights, he puts out quite a few numbers that make sense. And I'm no money man for sure, but I can tell for sure that he does a heck of a lot of research and spends a lot of time. And I think he cares a lot. And I really would like to see the council take him up on, I think I heard him urge or say to the council that he would meet with anybody on the council with. So I urge you to maybe consider taking him up on that. As far as I'm concerned, he seems to know his numbers, and I'd like you, to just give him a chance. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Hermes. Just for the record, I have taken Mr. Layton up on that offer 3 times. I've met with him, once at his business, twice here at City Hall. I've also extended the offer to him to serve on a board and commission if he would like to apply for that too, and he has not done that at this point. But yeah, thank you, Mark, for that comment. And yeah, please.
Debbie Smith again. There is a little side talking here. We all want to know where that $250,000 home is, where the taxes only went up $20. And the reason I'm saying that, My property taxes, and I wish I had brought it with me, my property taxes have gone up significantly every year for some years now. I also noticed that my homestead credits have gone down while my property taxes go up. And a lot of people didn't notice that that was happening.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up, just to clarify that chart, and without getting into the complete weeds, because it's a very complicated formula. However, that chart says if your house was valued by the county in 2022 at $250,000, and it was valued at $250,000 in 2023, then the increase would be $20. And I say that's what we can go on when we put these slides together. So what I'm getting at is the values of homes in Fergus Falls have gone up, and so most properties valued in 2022 at $250,000 would see an increase, and so that, of course, is accounted for that as well. But that chart, is that,
You're stating it absolutely right, and that's when I said every property's different,
Everyone-
and everyone's value changes different.
and
So
the tax rate and the mill
Right.
rate, and it's very
This
complicated.
is just 250 across the board, so yeah, when your value goes up, that's by all means gonna go up.
Absolutely.
Council again, Dwayne Cookman. Unique situation, we moved back into the area. I grew up in Fergus Falls, moved back to the area in 2010. We bought my folks' home for $65,000. And through the court, they tried to sell it, okay, just a corner of Broadway and Stanton. This last time, it's valued at $140,000. I would venture to say none of your homes has doubled in value, has it?
Yep.
And again, I would.
So when they take a look at, okay, $250,000, okay, it's like, okay, was that home $125,000 10 years ago? And now it's, taxes have more than doubled.
Sure. And again, that's an issue with the county assessor's office when they distribute the values for that. So, and there is a process that's in May, half of the council
And we went to the board. and
sits
we
on the Board of
petitioned it.
Equalization.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then I assume they came out to your property to look at the property?
yeah.
So, and that's run by the county. By law, the city participates in that. Half of the council is appointed to that
I've been through
board.
that numerous times, but I'm just like, they smile at you and they go, fine, we'll come get you, okay.
I think, Your Honor,
Yeah.
one thing that says, would you sell your house for that price? And I don't know if you would or not, but I mean, that's one of the things that they usually say at those, I've been on that board a couple, 3 times, so it's kind of, it's a
And
good
I'm
one.
seriously thinking of
I-
doing that.
and that-
I'm going to
that's-
South Dakota.
Yeah, just say that's one of the things they come back with, so.
Thanks, Mr. Cookman.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yeah.
And, another thing that we have to keep in mind is that these numbers is just the city's portion of your tax. This doesn't include county tax, school district tax.
But it is understood. It is a complicated formula. And so we're going to, yeah, Mrs. Collin, you could please feel free to come to the lectern, and then we're going to wrap up because we have already closed the public comments, but I will allow you to speak, and then we're going to take it back to the council. We'll look for a resolution to act on the levy and the
Calling.
budget.
Just to say, with my property taxes, and yes, I know it shows County of Otter Tail, City of Fergus Falls, and the school district. The next meeting for the Otter Tail is Tuesday, December 12th, to check out your property taxes. And the one dealing with the school is Monday, December 11th, if you haven't looked at this. And in closing, I will just say my percent changes went up 53%, which is pretty stunning to just jump from what I had a year ago. So that's adding to the frustration that I see in all 3 areas.
Thank you, Mrs. Collin. Ms., pardon me. Thank you, Ms. Collin. Okay, so back to the council. We'll entertain a resolution at this point adopting the 2024 levy in the amount of $8,147,000.
All of it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Scott.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Laura. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. Next, we would look for a resolution adopting the 2024 budget as presented tonight by Bill in the amount of $67,889,149.
I'll make that.
Thank you. Brent?
Second?
Thank you. Tom? Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under claims this evening, we have bills in the amount of $863,663.60. If anyone has any questions on individual items, we'll direct them to our finance director.
I'll offer the resolution, pay the bills.
Thanks,
I'll second, Your Honor.
Mr. Fish. Mr. Roofer? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. We have no board, committee, or department reports from staff or administrative offices. We have no old or unfinished business or any new business that I'm aware of. Lynn, do you have announcements?
Just one quick thing back to the board equalization. I just got the notice last week that it's going to be April 25th. There's a chance for the public to contest their.
I misspoke. It's in April this year. All right, April 25th. But as the, as Ms. Colling stated, the school board and county still have public hearings on their taxes December 11th and 12th, I believe, if that's correct. So with that, no more other announcements, no other business to come before the council. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Have a great night. Chief, I will.